we've got the articles of impeachment against Donald Trump. Just to finish that little rant, I had lost my my paper for a minute. This is what David Leonhardt put together. I think it's a pretty damn good list. He points out, first of all, that when they threatened to impeach Nixon, they actually drafted articles of impeachment against Nixon, and he saw this coming, and that's why he resigned. Bill Clinton did not resign, but there are some parallels here. The first article of impeachment against Nixon said that he had, quote, prevented, obstructed, and impeded the administration of justice. Okay. And one of the two impeachment articles that the House passed against Bill Clinton used that identical phrase, writes David Leonhardt in today's New York Times. Each list, he says, was meant to show that the president had intentionally tried to subvert a federal investigation. And I would add that he did it with what's called corrupt intent. And here are the things that demonstrate that intent, that corrupt intent. You know, the Trump crime family are, you know, these guys have been, just think about the New York developer market and, you know, who's in that market and what goes on. Anyhow, during a dinner, here are the 10 things. Number one, he asked Comey for a pledge of loyalty. Number two, which, you know, come on. Number two, he asked, when he asked Comey to, quote, let go of the investigation of Michael Flynn, he asked the other people in the room to leave the room first. Now, that demonstrates corrupt intent. Now, article number 3 would be that he directed other officials to leave the White House so he could speak privately with Dan Coats, the director of national intelligence, and Mike Pompeo, the CIA director. And he tried to talk them into persuading Comey to back off going after Michael Flynn. Keep in mind, Michael Flynn has already pled guilty to crimes. So there's an actual crime here, and Donald Trump was trying to prevent the prosecution of it, and that's obstruction of justice. That's just number 3. Number 4, in March and April, he told Comey in phone calls that he wanted Comey to, quote, lift the cloud of the investigation. Please stop this. Number 5, he fired Comey on May 9th, and on May 10th, he met with some Russian officials and told them that the firing had, quote, taken off the great pressure of the Russia investigation. And then he told Lester Holt on May 11th, the next day, that the firing was because of this Russia thing. Number 6, again, there may or may not have been a crime, but the cover-up here is a crime. Number 6, on May 17th, shortly after hearing that the Justice Department had appointed Mueller, Trump berated Jeff Sessions and accused him of disloyalty. This, again, demonstrates corrupt intent. Number 7, in June, Trump explored several options to retake control. At one point, he ordered the firing of Mueller before the White House counsel, Don McGahn, said, no, I'll resign if you do that. Number 8, on Air Force One, he drafted a false public statement for his son, Don Jr., claiming that the meeting with the Russian lawyer was just about adoption. Number 9, on July 26th in a tweet, impeachment for a tweet. On July 26th in a tweet, Trump called for the firing of Andrew McCabe, the FBI's deputy director, a potential corroborating witness for Comey's conversation with Trump. Number 10, throughout Trump, and this quotation comes from the Nixon article impeachment, throughout, Trump made false and misleading public statements for the purpose of deceiving the people of the United States. That's a phrase from the Nixon impeachment, trying to deceive the people of the United States. Trump repeatedly made untruthful statements about American intelligence agencies' conclusions regarding Russia's role in the election. So there you go. That's the impeachment. The economic news I wanted to share with you, and I'm going to do this fairly quickly. This may or may not be a really big deal. The top story at about, 4 o'clock this morning when I was reading this on my phone was that the global bond market is collapsing. And as the bond market is collapsing, Robin Wigglesworth and Eric Platt in New York and Emma Dunkley in Hong Kong writing for the Financial Times, the pressure on the global bond market reverberated across equities on Tuesday, deepening a slide that began at the start of the week amid concern that the roaring stock market rally could be vulnerable to a reversal. The U.S. stocks slid 0.8% in the first minutes of trading, following a sell-off in Europe and a sell-off in Asia. And why? Well, the yield on the U.S. government bond is going up. It's gone up to a 3-year high of 2.73%. It was like 2.0 something. And when bond yields go up, it's more expensive to borrow. And, which makes it difficult for businesses that rely on borrowed money to grow. Goldman Sachs chief global equity strategist Peter Oppenheimer said that a correction is becoming increasingly likely. Larry Hathaway, the chief economist at GAM, an investment group, said this can't go on forever. The three biggest exchange-traded bond funds suffered their biggest monthly losses since 2016. Oppenheimer at Goldman Sachs says this does not mean the market is at risk of entering a sustained bear market, but it may mean the market experiences a sharp correction. Now, why? Remember when the Republicans passed their tax scam, their $1.5 trillion that they were going to borrow for this $5 trillion gift of tax breaks to billionaires? Well, when the government borrows money, it has to sell bonds. So if the government is trying to sell bonds right now, and the Chinese are no longer buying bonds, and the Fed stopped buying bonds this month, nobody's buying the bonds. And that's why the price or the yield of the bonds, the amount of interest that they pay, is going